In this video, we're going to take a look at a green ink by Sailor in their Kobe line, their number 47. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, and it really does help the channel out if you check out the entire video. Also down in the description is a green ink playlist, so if you wanted to see more greens, you can find that there. I'm an ink guy, and let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. We get no feather, no spread, some shading shows up in the stub, a lot of shading shows up in the extra fine, and a lot of shading shows up in the medium. Now the extra fine and the medium are the same tone, both a little lighter than the stub. Extra fine took 6 seconds to dry, while the medium took 12. The scrubby for both are showing a little bit of color variation, but I think it shows much nicer in the writing. And the smear test, you could maybe recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Hero 7035 with a fine nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, no spread, no shading for the stub, extra fine or medium. The extra fine and medium are the same tone, both a bit lighter than the stub. The extra fine took 13 seconds to dry and the medium 19. The scrubby for both are showing no color variation. We're really not getting shading in the writing, and the smear test, you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down and then it's put into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And this is very interesting because what we have is a very light blue leaning turquoise on the bottom, and it's really pushing its way up. And then we get a bright green, but there's a dark green line all the way at the top. And I really do think that that dark green at the top is not the same as the light green underneath it. The one on the right is let dry for 10 minutes, and we see that blue leaning turquoise really does start to form down at the bottom, start to bond with the paper. The rest of it pushes up. We get that same nice lighter green, but this dark green line at the top is, again, the reason that I actually wind up thinking this is a separate green. It gathered in exactly the same way. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. Now we have no feather, no spread. We have only a tiny bit of shading that shows up in the stub. It does show itself a bit in the extra fine, not very standout, but it's there. And in the medium, it shows itself a little bit better than in the others. The extra fine and medium look very much the same tone, while the stub looks a little bit darker. The extra fine is 8 seconds to dry and the medium's 13. Scrubby for both do show a little bit of color variation in the far left to far right, and it's there in the writing. Now the smear test says you could probably recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink could be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. This smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it performed incredibly well, much better than I was expecting. It really holds together, making me feel safe using it in a note-taking situation. Now, water's reactivating and lifting most of this ink off the paper. It only took water to get it out of the pen, so that makes a whole lot of sense. Pen flush does everything that water does, nothing more, and the 1/3 bleach solution is really removing a lot of it, but turning a lot of it blue also in the surrounding areas. The next writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia paper. We're not looking for performance change, we're really looking for tone change. Not that we expect to be using the green ink on yellow paper in a professional environment. It was really just about curiosity. And what I like is the medium. I think there's a slight tone change between them, and I really like how it looks on the yellow. Even with the stub. Now the extra fine does nothing for me. I don't care for the extra fine's tone on yellow. Stub, where it was much darker, looks really good. And the medium is standout the best one. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Sailor Kobe number 47 has a viscosity of 1.33, so it's a wet ink. The next writing sample is done on life paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. No feather, no spread, no shading. Only tone variation. The extra fine is really light on the page. The medium's quite a bit darker than the extra fine, and the stub's a little bit darker than the medium. Extra fine took 6 seconds to dry, while medium took 11. The scrubby for both are showing some color variation, but it's really not coming through in the writing, and the smear test you could probably recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Sailor Kobe's number 47 has an average dry time of 12 seconds, so it dries a little bit faster than normal. The last writing sample is done on Levenger paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. No grippage on the paper trying to turn it over. No feather, no spread. No shading for the stub. Some shading for the extra fine. Some shading for the medium, although not nearly as much as we see with the extra fine. It has tons of spots throughout it. Very nice in the extra fine. The extra fine is the lightest tone on the page, while the medium and stub look very much to be the same tone. The extra fine took 4 seconds to dry and the medium took 8. The scrubby for both. The extra fine shows the color variation, which we get. The medium shows some far left to far right. It shows much better in the scrubby than in the writing. And the smear test you could probably recover if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Sailor Kobe number 47, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I like putting purple with green, so I chose a purple ink also by Sailor, their Ink of the Witch. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those playlists. So what do I think of Sailor Kobe number 47? This tone of green just isn't for me. It is a nice, cool green and shades really well. I wish I liked greens like this one, and with that I'm referring to its particular tone. If I did, I would jump all over a bottle of this. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? Now, I said this isn't really the tone for me, and I don't know that going for a darker tone is actually what would be best, though you could get it with a very wet pen. I think using a medium to dry flow medium pen really is going to put down the most pleasant version of this ink with a decent amount of shading. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video we're going to take a look at Sailor Kobe number 14.